Hi there, and welcome to the Fiat Proof podcast. I'm Sylvia, and today I'm with Lachlan. He's 27 years old, he's a Bitcoiner, and he has never been to school in his life. Thank you so much for coming on, Lachlan.
Yeah, no, thank you. First time on a podcast, so I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too, because a lot of people would like to know, are my kids going to be okay? Am I doing the right thing? Are they going to turn out weird, or are they going to be like super geniuses? So I think I haven't met you, but we're gonna find out today. I think you're probably just a normal person, very bright and
Mhm.
happy. I can see that in your face, in your eyes, in your smile. So I would love to know more about you. Like these are the only three things I know. 27 years old, Bitcoin unschooled. What else is to know about you?
Okay, so for the last 15 years, I've been a high performance cheerleader. And then I've also now, over the last about 8 years, 9 years, I've been coaching as well. I'm now a full-time coach. So I work for the largest cheerleading gym in Canada. We have about 9 locations across the country. And that's literally my full-time job. I coach the sport for 40 hours a week, interacting with all walks of life, from 8-year-olds all the way to 30 to 40-year-old parents who, have so many questions to ask. So I think that's one thing that homeschooling it really set me up for, is being able to interact with any type of human being. Um, but other than that, I love cooking. So we'll probably get into that too a little bit. And yeah, my third passion in life would definitely be Bitcoin. So I've been a Bitcoiner for over half a decade now. So
Wow, that's amazing.
mhm,
Like you've been working as a coach for 9 years. Like you would think that over like a maybe 40-year-old or something,
mhm,
and that's something that you see and hear a lot about unschoolers and homeschoolers. They start something earlier because they don't have to go through this school, which is for me is a waste of
mhm.
time. They can find a passion and pursue it from early age. When did you start getting into cheerleading?
So cheerleading was not my, like, and again, this is what homeschooling allows you to do, is cheerleading was not my original passion. It was just the sport that I played. So at about probably 11, I started to really love cooking. Um, I always joke. I think my mom. You talked to my mom about this, but she had a rule in the family: if you cooked,
Oh,
you
yes.
didn't have to clean. And this is why I fell into love with cooking. I was like, I hate cleaning. So I was like, I'll help cook. And then I started cooking, and probably by the time I was 13 or 14, I was cooking almost all the meals in the family.
Wow.
Um, and that was my first passion. I was going to be a chef. I was going to open up my own restaurant. That was 100% what I was going to do. And being homeschooled, I was allowed to work in a restaurant. So at 14 or 15 years old, I can't remember exactly, one of our friends had a restaurant, and they were like, oh, like come stars there. And like that's just like basically being an apprentice chef, like and learning. And that kind of like fell through awkwardly at the last minute. And then one of the people that we knew was like, oh no, like you were so passionate, you were so excited about this. Let's find you another restaurant to do it at. And he was like, send me a list of your three favorite restaurants in the city. And at the time we were living in Vancouver. Um, and I sent him a list of my restaurants. We signed up a meeting with all three. I walked into the first one, and they were like, oh my God, we love this idea. We've done this before. We'll take you on, and you can work, one day a week. I was like, I'm 15, but at one of the top restaurants in downtown Vancouver.
Wow.
Um, I loved it. I loved every minute. I got to basically spend 2.5, 3 years learning how to cook instead of having to go to culinary school. But then also, it showed me the environment. So instead of learning it in this controlled fashion of regimented school, I got tossed in at 14 years old into a restaurant that was going through hundreds and hundreds of people in a night, And I went, wow, this is so much fun. I love cooking, but I have no chance of wanting to do this as a career,
Yeah.
right? So at about 17, I made a cheerleading team in the States. So we lived in California for 2 years as I was a high performance cheerleading coach. And at that time, I was kind of finishing up high school. And I started to be like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, I know I don't want to be a chef in a restaurant anymore. And then I came back and I loved the sport of cheerleading. So I was like, oh, okay, like, might as well start coaching. I did a little bit of coaching when I was in the States, but not a lot. And then slowly that evolved into, okay, I'll start at 10 hours a week. Oh, okay, maybe I'll jump to 20 hours a week. Oh, how much can I fill my time with? And then I ended up getting a job offer to move across the country to work at the top gym in Canada full time. So
Wow.
that was kind of my journey through the sport and how I ended up with the job that I currently have, which again, not a normal job, right? So I think that's what homeschooling allowed you to do is I was just able to follow this passion, follow that passion and kind of figure it out. And if I was in school at 18, I would have gone, I'm going to culinary school. And I would have gone through, I don't know, 2 to 4 years of culinary school, hopped into a restaurant at 23 years old and gone, oh, I don't like this.
Hmm.
And instead, by 16, 17 years old, I knew that I love cooking and I still cook every day. I still have little dinner parties for friends and stuff, but in no world did I want to make it a career.
Hmm.
So that is probably the most important thing that homeschooling offered me in my career life.
Amazing. Like there's nothing
Mhm.
more to add. You said it all. There's like
Yeah.
instead of doing how people are supposed to do it, you can just jump in and try it out without being judged and getting
Mhm.
grades and doing lots of stuff that you might even not
Mhm.
need to learn. You just were straight in. I love that. And like my daughter, she's just 7, but I have this issue right now. Maybe you can help me out with that. She's saving up money. She doesn't get much pocket money. Okay. And she
Mhm.
wants to buy herself these headphones. And I don't know what else she wants the money for, but she said, what do I need to do to get this money? She took money out of my purse. It was like 50 euros. And she said,
Mhm.
what can I do to earn this money? And I didn't know because I was like, I don't want her to get paid for things she's, like supposed to do at home, like tidy her room
Mhm.
or something. Um, what do you think is possible for a 7-year-old? What kind of jobs from me,
I
from
know.
friends, from community?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's actually like a really interesting thought because like I wouldn't have an immediate answer that comes to
Yeah,
mind. Because like yeah, similar concept, like my parents, we didn't really like, hang money over each other's heads. Like my parents were very kind of against rewarding and
yeah,
also against punishment,
me
right?
too.
So that's
Understand.
this is I think this is one of the weirdest concepts when I tell people I was never punished as a kid, but I was also never really rewarded in like, here's a physical good for doing your best.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean that's an interest because like at 7, yeah, what can a 7-year-old offer? But that's what homeschooling allows you to do. Maybe we can figure something out. So that's where it's something, look around your community, look around the people that need help. So it's like, yeah, okay, cleaning a room or putting all the shoes away at the front or something is something when you're in your family is expected and of you, not like you should get rewarded for this, and you don't want to teach that. But
Hmm.
maybe it's finding someone else,
Yeah.
right? So like even if it's, I don't know, an old lady in the building or something like that, or a neighbor, and going, hey, uh, you don't have to pay my kid. I'm
Hmm.
going to pay my kid, but can you come up with a job around your house
Yeah.
that my 7-year-old can do? So even if it's what she's doing, it's external, right? So
Yeah.
okay, I'll go. to my neighbor's house and clean up I'll
Yeah.
clean up the yard by, picking some things up, and then I'll get paid to do it, even though it's just coming from you. Oh, that might be interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. Or walking a dog or something.
Hmm.
That's a good idea. I'm gonna talk to her because it's been on my mind. It's like I'm all about let her choose. I'm not gonna pay for
Hmm.
everything, but let her choose. And if she has the idea, like I want to earn money, I don't want to be in the way of that either. So yeah, but I was thinking
Yeah.
something external because I don't like this reward and punishment either. I don't do that either. Not even
Hmm.
with words so much, like praise all the time. I don't do that. So yeah, I'm gonna try that. Thank you. And
Hmm.
how did your early years look like? What did like unschooling look like, and let's say primary school years?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't remember a lot of my young years. I know my mom kind of gave probably a quick. I listened to the podcast, but I'm not remember exactly what she said about kind of the beginning of my brother and I's homeschooling. But it was definitely my brother that my dad had the concept of we should homeschool our kids.
Mhm.
And I think my mom told that whole story, but um, it it was really like my brother was really smart. My brother was just like probably one grade higher than other kids or two grades higher. I don't really know. I don't again. I never went to school. I don't know how grading works. I always make jokes because of course like coaching children my whole life, and I'll be like, I have no clue what you're talking about, and they're like, oh, like like a free block, and I'm like a free block of what? No, it's like a section of your day where you don't have school, and I'm like, okay. I had school when I wanted to do school, and I didn't have school when I didn't want to go. But my brother was just a little bit kind of probably ahead of the curve, and so my parents were like, okay, well, why don't we give the homeschooling a try? And then what's really fascinating is I would have been behind the curve at the beginning, right? So when I first was starting homeschooling, I learned to read much later than most of my friends. I learned to write much later than most of my friends.
I
I
just ask quickly how you learn how to write and read.
how
Mhm.
I don't exactly remember. Like I would have been pretty young, but from from let's just kind of guess what it is with everything else that I've learned. I learned it when I needed to,
Mhm.
So it was one of those things where, okay, probably at 5 or 6, like I was really late to learning how to read well. I would be out doing things and I'd be like, oh, I'm, I don't want to say that I don't know how to read that. So then I'd go home and I'd be like, okay, I need to learn how to read.
Mhm.
Right. So, when life faces you with a problem of, oh, I need to write things down and people need to be able to read them well. Okay,
Mhm.
maybe I should work on my handwriting. And now, granted, still to this day, I have to write some conditioning and exercises at the end of lessons for kids on the board. And I don't have to tell any kid which one's my conditioning on the board because my handwriting is not good. So they just walk over and it's readable, right? And I got it to you can read it, right? But it was definitely like I never was expected to perfect my handwriting, right?
But
And
I've gone to school and my handwriting is really bad. It looks ugly.
yeah,
So
yeah, and so when it comes to the younger years, we really learned. I think my parents had the base kind of general knowledge, right? It was like math, science, English, and maybe like a little bit of history kind of thing. But it wasn't like you have to sit down for 1 hour today and do this, and you have to sit down and 1 hour and do this. It was, oh, you want to do some math today? Let's do some math today. And if it was fine, I was finding it interesting that day, we would do it. And if I wasn't finding it interesting, they would go, okay, what about the next thing? Right. And then slowly you also start to go, okay, where can I find other ways of teaching our kids? So, oh, my we went into Greek mythology, and this is probably one of my most vivid early childhood memories. My brother, being the amazing storyteller and very theatrical, he took me through all of the Greek,
oh,
all of Hercules, labors, but he made me do them. So it was so funny, because I like vividly remember all of Hercules's labors, not because I know what they are, because I remember, oh, when I had to clean out the stables, it was actually my brother making me clean out my closet,
And guys,
right?
listen, his brother is an actor now. So
Yeah, no, but there you go, right? Like there's videos of my brother at 5 or 6 years old telling a story, looking through a book that has nothing to do with the story, right? And you could just tell he was, using his hands at 7 or 8 years old, telling a story, and now, yeah, he's an actor. He writes, he directs, he does anything that he can in that field, because at 6 or 7 he wasn't told do more math.
yes, or you're not supposed to be creative, or that's just, I don't know,
Yeah,
nonsense or lying.
yeah, and and I mean, I can go on another quick tangent here, but I always laugh. My brother was the artist and I was a little bit more of the sports side of things, and we kind of did all the other school in the middle. But um we one of my favorite stories is my brother and I were not super academic, and this is across our whole lives. We're still better at math than the vast majority of my friends who who got 90s through high school, you
Wow.
know, and then you look at a number, and you have to do some quick multiplication or some quick division, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's like 13, and
Yeah.
they're like, oh, let me pull my phone out, and you're like, it it's like, it's not it, just start getting there. Like, we don't need an exact number, we don't need it to the third decimal. we just need we need a rough number of, okay, well, this there's
Yeah.
50 kids in front of me and we need to divide it by 4. Okay, well, there's 12, let's
Yeah.
go with 12, right? Even if that's not right, right? Or there's actually 52 kids in front of you, get to 12 and keep moving. So I feel like problem solving
Yeah.
and real life application of school has been so much easier for my brother and I than, oh, well, no, I need to pull up my calculator and confirm my work. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you don't.
Yeah, and learning
There's
out, like learning by heart. Like Rob,
mm-hmm,
my husband, told me the other day that Bo, she's 4, and he was, I don't know how they got into it, but it was like 1 + 1 and 4 + 3 or something. And he even tried to show with the fingers, and then he took out the rocks or something, and then she got it because she could see it and she could relate the numbers to something.
mm-hmm,
Like, it makes
yeah,
no sense. Like he said, when he was at school, it was like, okay, 2 + 2 is 4, and 3 + 3 is 6. And it was just
yeah,
memorizing numbers that had like no connection to what he was doing in
yeah,
his life. But when it's with real life stuff, it makes sense, and then
mm-hmm.
it usually sticks.
Yeah, and that's, we did similar things with like science. We had an amazing science center in the city that I grew up in. There's this massive building, and you could go to, and I think that changed a lot of my perception of science, because you can tell me, this chemical reaction creates this, and ooh, if you put baking soda and vinegar together, there's going to be a bit of an explosion. And we didn't I don't remember ever being told that. I remember the day that my dad took a bowl, or a cup or something, and it
Mhm.
and I was like, whoa, like and that's, again, like, school does that, but school also hands you a book, you know and goes, read this. Well, I fight every kid that I coach on this. If you're told to read Shakespeare, your teacher is failing you. Like,
Mhm.
Shakespeare is not supposed to be read in your head, especially not at 14 and 15 when you don't understand iambic pentameter. It,
Yeah, we got that.
it you're not supposed to understand every single word. You're not supposed to need to know what line 3 says and what the exact meaning behind that is. You're supposed to understand what the scene is about, you know? The scene is
Mhm.
about Romeo falling in love with Juliet. not the fact that, oh, on this line he is actually talking about the beauty of her eyes. It's like,
Mhm. Yeah.
no, don't care. They're falling in love. This is cute, you
Yeah.
know.
It's very superficial learning. It doesn't go
Mm-hmm.
deep.
No, and I think, and again, when you're passionate, you can find something, and you're gonna fall so much further down that rabbit hole,
Mhm.
right? So my brother wouldn't be the artist that he is today if he wasn't allowed to, oh, today I'm gonna write a script, at 12 years old, I'm gonna write a story, right? And he just would write a whole story. It would make no sense. It would be halfway through, it would switch from Batman to um like, some form of Shakespeare that he had read that week, and then it would flip to something he saw on the news, and he would try to be basically combining all these stories of what happened this week into another story, and you'd be like, okay, that makes no sense. But now he'll sit down, and he was here a month ago. He's actually here right now, but he was in my apartment a month ago, and he sat down in a room for 2 weeks and wrote a 150-page script.
Wow.
And I'm just like, how many people can do that, right? But he started at 10. He started at 11. And he was just allowed to, which is what my favorite thing about homeschooling.
Yeah. I mean, what
Mm-hmm.
greater power can there be than this love for something, a real passion? If you just
Mm-hmm.
let them do, then it can
Yeah,
grow, and, they find their way. Because there's no one person who can tell him what's the right way for him, how to get somewhere. He doesn't even know where he wants to go. That's the beauty
yeah.
about children. They're just in the moment and they follow this
Mm-hmm.
curiosity and their passion. And the more you put in, like, maybe read this book, or let me introduce you to this person who can teach you about, I don't know what. Sometimes it might be good,
Yeah.
but I think if it's this intentional, he can learn so much more. He can get so much better if I give him and if other people. But I always say, I don't do that with adults either, because adults don't know everything. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like everybody needs to know what I know. I don't like, who am I to teach people? I always give this example because that's my thing, jiu-jitsu. Like, I don't take people and say, you know what, it's so much fun, or it's good for you, or it's everybody's choice what they're into. And yeah, kids are just so connected to their natural,
Mm-hmm.
what do you call it? Intelligence.
Curiosity.
Yes, like, follow that,
Yeah.
and you can't really be wrong. And especially if there are people around you who don't judge you, who don't try to push you a certain way, then there cannot be a
Mm-hmm.
wrong way. You just see, yeah, this is fun, this is interesting, I like this, and I'm good at this, and where can I go from here? Yeah, so I love unschooling. Let me
Yeah.
see what else I had. Oh, do you have anything to say about that?
No, no, go. No, I love it.
Because yeah, you already answered how do you got where you're now, the transitioning, very
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Um, And yeah, one question I had from your childhood, what do you like best about your childhood?
What I like best about my child, I think the freedom, the freedom to do what I wanted. And it's not the freedom to sit on my phone and scroll through it, but the freedom to, okay, today, he's outside, he's running around playing a game with his brother. I don't need to force him to do school this week today. But then also you'd roll around and it would be rainy and awful out. And okay, that's a great day to sit down and do some math. You don't
Mhm.
want to go outside. You don't want to do anything else. You just want to be sitting on the couch, right? So I think that freedom of being able to learn whenever was probably the best thing. If I had something that needed to get done and it was beautiful and sunny out, I could go out, get my fresh air for the day, come back in, and I could do school at 4 o'clock. I didn't have to have this like at 9 a.m. I start school, at 2 p.m. I leave school. It
Yeah.
was, oh, this is what I have to accomplish this week. Or, oh, I know that this is and my mom was a huge fan of lists, so we didn't have um, like rules, but we had things that were required of you to be finished by the end of the week, kind of thing. So, or in some cases, if you wanted to sit and play video games, or if you wanted to sit and get watch a movie, here are the 8 things that are required of you this week. So if on Monday I sit and play video games and do nothing on Monday, I'm now going, oh, I have a little less time to get this list done. And some days it would be, okay, I want to hang out with my friend on Thursday. I know I'm out of the house on Friday. If I get all of my work done today, I can do whatever I want for the next 2 days. And I think that freedom it was the best thing of my childhood.
Mhm. So there was a like a mix of yeah things that were required to do, but
Yeah.
you still had the choice and you had to manage your own time and week. That
Mm-hmm.
sounds really, really good. That's instead of forcing you and do it now and do it this way, it's really
Yeah.
we're a family, this needs to be done and
Mm-hmm.
you choose. I like that.
Yeah. And obviously like some things did have deadlines, like if the kitchen needed to be cleaned before dinner, it wasn't you have to clean the kitchen right now. It was, well, I'm going to start cooking at 4. I need the kitchen cleaned by 4. If you decide to leave it till 3:35 and rush in there and cause yourself a bunch of stress and try to clean the place as fast as you can, okay. But
Yeah.
also, that's life. Sometimes you're given a deadline and sometimes you procrastinate it. And then at the last minute, you're like, ah!
Did you remember what age this started more or less, where you had your things to do? Or was it like
My
small things in the
whole life.
beginning? Okay.
I think it was my whole life. I can't remember a time where there wasn't something, like just something there, even if it was small, like, oh, just make sure you put your Legos away when you're done playing with them, you know? Um, and if you don't, okay, but then guess what? Before you get to play with that toy, your room's a mess. So you have to put the Legos away. And I don't know, I've always, from what I remember, I was a really organized kid. I would have different boxes labeled different pieces, you
Hmm.
know? So I think that's the thing is it starts to teach you, oh, well, I can put my Legos away really quickly if I put a label on all of these boxes and then put the pieces away in those boxes. But yeah, no, nothing. I don't remember a time where I was like completely like unstructured. There was always a little bit of structure to, start teaching you that you're going to need structure in your life, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to, when you get to, 20 years old and you have a job, as much as I would love to live the homeschooling life, I coach, private lessons where it's 2 kids, one-on-one sometimes, that kind of stuff. I can't just go, hey, be at the gym in 20 minutes. I starts at 3, I have to be there at
Sure.
3, right? So
Yeah.
it does teach you a little form of, oh, okay, I do have deadlines. And
Hmm.
those aren't bad, like a little bit of structure as long as it's not like aggressively enforced, you
Yeah.
know, right? It's not, oh my God, you have to do this now. It's like, just so you have 3 hours to get it done. It's a 20-minute job, but you got 3 hours to get it done. And then, yeah, maybe when an hour swings around, my mom would be like, by the way, you need to get that done. And I'd be like, I will, you know? And then, then there's other, I guess, I don't know if there was ever, again, there wasn't really ever consequences, but, then at an older age, now I know, if my brother's cleaning up the kitchen, for instance, and I'm like, I want to start cooking in 20 minutes and the kitchen's not done, you know? And I'm like, oh, this is what my mom must have felt when I was 12.
Cool.
So,
And how would you
mhm.
describe your relationship with your brother, with your mom, with your dad, and between them?
I mean, they're all my best friends.
Oh,
We're extremely close. I speak to them every day. Um, we're all kind of all over the place now. So my parents live on the west side of Canada. I live on the east side of Canada, and my brother kind of lives in the States. He kind of jumps between a few different cities. But yeah, I speak to them every day. They're the first person I go to. So it, we when your parents are there and they put the work in, and they're the person that you're seeing at 12, they're going to be the person that you go to when you get to older years. And now I don't see my parents as these figureheads that tell me what to do. They're just my friends. My dad and I, and my mom to an extent too, like, I want to talk about Bitcoin or something, and I'm not talking to one of my friends. I'm calling my dad up. I'm like, oh, did you see this? Whoa, did you see this news? Or I love cooking. So I'm like, hey, I tried this new recipe. You guys should try this. And I send it to them the same way I send it to my friend. Right. So like if you create that structure at a younger age, you just get little friends. That's what your kids become.
Mhm.
And now again, like I don't look at my parents and go, oh, those are my parents. I look at
Yeah.
my parents and go, oh, those are like, oh, my friends are coming to town. Like I can't wait to see them.
You're
Like, you
excited.
know,
So nice.
yeah.
But is there anything that you wished your parents had done differently in your upbringing? Not to blame or criticize, but everybody
Um,
says.
Again, it's against the homeschooling mantra of forcing. I always joke with my mom, I wish she would have forced me to learn another language at a young age.
Okay.
I always joke about that because I've tried now at an older age, and I'm like, ah, oh, if only I was just like forced to do it at 12. Would I have done it? Probably not, you know? Right?
Would you still know it? Probably not.
I actually did try to teach you French when you were 12 and you hated every minute of it and refused to do it. And I was like, I know, but what if you just made me do it somehow? And she's like, I couldn't. And I was like, but what if you did? Um, but yeah, but again, I think that's the setup, right? So if if I'm looking at it and I'm like, I love my kid to learn a second language at a young age, take them somewhere where they speak a second language and stay there for a little. Like put them in an environment. Well, then they'll be forced to learn it. And I think that was the thing is, yeah, you can't sit a kid down at a book and force them to learn something and then be excited about it. But put a kid in a country where they speak a different language, they're gonna go, what are my friends talking about?
Yeah.
I want to know what they're talking about. Okay, maybe I should learn this language. So yeah, I think that's the only thing that I always joke that I wish they would have done differently, but they didn't force me to do anything. So they would have had to make me miserable as a kid to force me to learn a second language. And like you said earlier, probably wouldn't even know it.
And there are so many languages. How can they know which one you would have liked to speak or you would like to
Hmm.
speak in the future? Which
Yeah.
language would you like to learn or would you like to be able to speak now?
I would have probably liked to learn Spanish. Like I think that's like, yeah, I know. I think that's
No,
the
I
language
was
just,
brought up my mom's from Peru, my dad's German, so I was brought up bilingual. That's why I say it's easy.
yeah. So I think that would be again, if I would love to learn Spanish before I have a kid so that they can learn a little bit of bilingual. But my fiance, she doesn't speak another language either. So
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I was going to say that marry a South American or a Spanish lady, but if you already have one.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. No, I have an Australian girlfriend or fiance. I keep on saying girlfriend, but I proposed last week,
So-
so she said
Oh,
yes.
wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Let me look at my list because I had some questions from the audience from my list.
Mhm.
So let me ask you, yeah, what, if anything, do you feel the mainstream route offers that you wish unschooling would offer?
Yeah. I would go with nothing. Um, I really loved my whole structure of schooling. Because I coach kids, I listen to the things that they say
Mhm.
throughout the day, and I am just like, oh my gosh, like I cannot believe that that's what they go through 5 days a week. I yeah, I think that there's very little things that that school can offer that homeschooling can't do better, you know? And I think you can find your passions, and you can find, you know, you're forced to learn these subjects in a fashion you don't like in school, compared to, okay, one day you're looking up at the stars. Well, maybe that's the time to start teaching the kids what planets are and what space is and stuff like that. And then that can turn into, well, gravity. Oh, oh, wait. Okay, now we're kind of getting into physics. And you can find those like linear logical routes to get through schooling, instead of, this week we're learning about this. And if you don't quite grasp that concept, you're not going to grasp the next one next week,
Yeah.
right? And I just love that freedom. And I just don't see, I don't see that. I don't see that in school.
Hmm.
And I don't know how your school system in Europe works, but my in Canada, you don't even fail kids anymore. So if they fall a grade behind, they still go to the next grade.
Okay, I don't know if they changed that here. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
I had a kid say that to me the other day, that one of their friends failed school, and I was like, "Oh, so they're behind a grade?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh, so they didn't know grade 6, and now they're going into grade 7." I'm like, how does that work? Like, there's no way that kid's going to be able to succeed at grade 7 now, you know?
Yeah.
And again, I think that the second you switch into that, um, you, there's no way homeschooling doesn't beat every single setup.
Hmm. And also the statistics show it that homeschoolers always outperform school kids.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, great answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the next question is, one day when you have kids, do you already know if you will want to unschool them, or perhaps there is something you will do differently to your own journey?
Um, Force them to learn a second language. No, I'm kidding. um, no,
Spanish.
no, I don't see him doing pretty much anything differently than my parents. I look at my brother, who's very successful. I look at me, who's very successful, and I think that the recipe was there, and I wouldn't change a thing. I joke, yeah. I wish my mom would have forced me to learn a second language. That's my killer joke, but I'm still not in a situation, of all the other countries that I've coached in. Um, Spanish was never one of those languages that I needed to learn.
Hmm.
French was never one of those languages I needed to learn. You know what language would be extremely helpful? Danish.
Oh, really?
I've coached in Denmark for every year. I, my mom I would have never stumbled
Yeah.
into Danish, So no, I don't see anything differently. My fiance, I remember one of the first couple months that I was dating her, she said something about, like, I think homeschooling your kids would make a lot of sense. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm marrying you. Like, I'm like, I don't even have to convince you. Like, you
Did
you
she
think
know that you were
homeschooling.
unschooled?
She knew that I think she knew that I had been unschooled, but I don't think she knew the extent that I was like passionate. Like, I don't, and again, freedom. So like, if my kid decides one day that they're like, I want to go to school, I'm not going to tell them no,
Mhm.
but also, good luck, have
Yes.
fun. Have fun sitting in a classroom for 30 hours a week when we're out doing fun stuff, you know? Um, so I just think, I won't change a thing. My fiance is on board. She loves that idea, and we've chatted about it, and yeah, as long as one of the kids doesn't look me straight in the face and go, I want to go to school, they
Mhm.
won't ever go into a school.
Cool. Okay, here's one other question. Would you say unschooling is for all types of children, or is there a type of person who would do better in life with the more formal education?
I don't think you need a formal education unless you want to specialize in something. So, you know what? I want a doctor that went to school, but I don't care what their high school upbringing was. If they made it through medical school, they're good enough to be my doctor. You know, if someone comes in and does my electrician work in my house, I want them to have done school for electrician work.
Mhm.
But no, I don't think there's any reason for homeschool for someone to need structure or to need the schooling system. The schooling system is I mean, in what if your kid wants the school structure and wants to be doing 30 hours of school in a week, you can still do that through homeschooling, right? If your kid, and I'm not one, and I always joke, what if I get one? A kid like that is who's just really excited about sitting down and reading a book
Mhm.
and learns all of their information through sitting at the table, reading a book, writing a test, reading a book, writing a test. Well, I can structure that. I'm going to be so confused. I'm going to be like, wait, you want to do this, right? But it, structure it that way. If a kid is going to succeed and you think that your kid is extremely academic and extremely smart, the tools are there. You can structure it exactly like school. You can wake them up at 8 a.m. You know, tell them to
Yeah.
brush their teeth and put their uniform on and go sit at the table. You know, if that is what it works for, and you know, if your kid is jumping around and bouncing around and stuff, that structure doesn't work for them, right?
Mhm.
They might need to go wake up every morning, go outside, climb a tree, run around for 3 hours, burn off all of that energy, and then go and sit down and do school. You know, you have
Mhm.
so many kids get told, "Oh, you have this, you have that." You
Mhm.
know, you're too hyper. Maybe they just have a little bit excess energy. I know now, being an adult, if I go to the gym and work out at 8 a.m., the rest of my day is easier.
Mhm.
I've burned off that energy. I can be focused. Like if I need to sit down and I need to sit on my computer and break down a practice plan for my athletes, if I go hit the gym for an hour that morning and burn some energy, I can then sit on my phone and sit on my computer for 3 hours, you know?
Yeah.
But if I wake up, roll out of bed and straight onto my computer and start working, I'm like, by the end of the day.
Yeah. And it's
So,
because you know yourself, and
mhm,
people who've been to school, they don't know themselves. They don't know what they need because they had to do this for so many years. They cannot listen to
yeah.
their bodies anymore.
Yeah. And I think again what you learn at school is important, you know. I think there are aspects, you know, history is great. To know history, to know what's happening in the world is great to broaden your view in the world. Math is fantastic to what you're going to use in life. You know, like
Yeah.
it, I don't need to know algebra. I
Mhm.
tried to learn algebra in school. I have never once ran into a moment in life where I needed to use any form of high math, you know? Like I didn't, right? English. English is great. You know what? Knowing how to communicate with people is fantastic. But also like you don't need to know how to write a 5,000 word essay.
Mhm.
Again, never have. And also, I always think it's hilarious in school, you're told 500 words. I want 1,000 words. I want it to be long. I want you to draw it out. Well, in the real world, what do you need to actually do? You need to get your point across in as few words as possible.
Yes.
Hey, describe to me this chapter of the book. One sentence, go. That's what the world is now. Not, oh, please tell me the emotional depth behind this character.
Mhm.
No one, no one talks like that.
Nobody wants to hear that
So
anyway. If I'm into something
yeah,
and I keep talking about it, people get
mm-hmm,
bored.
yeah. So look, I mean, there are a few subjects where I can sit down, and there's no way that you would ever say I had ADHD. When I was falling in love with Bitcoin, I could sit on the couch and learn about, the Lightning Network for 6 hours, you know, and know every little detail here and there, and then, have a conversation with my dad and give him a quick overview of what I learned that day. Like, that's real world studying,
Yeah.
right? If you told me I needed to write an 1,000-word essay on it, I'd have been miserable.
Course. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like your whole family, your Bitcoiners, but I think your
Mm-hmm.
mom's and your brother not so much. It's not such an enthusiast,
Yeah.
and I suppose you did put the work in because you liked something about it. What is something that Bitcoin taught you?
Well, I think it allowed me to connect my feelings of my homeschooling background and kind of pushing against the norm and that kind of stuff to a broader spectrum of like, oh, money, and I I didn't know a lot of stuff about, like, I wasn't a diehard financial human being. I had done a little bit of fun investing with my mom. Like, as a kid, I had some money in my bank account, and I was like, dad wakes up every morning and looks at the stock market. I want to invest, and we did a little bit, and that kind of probably sparked me a little bit. And then my dad was a bit of a gold bug, so we went to gold conferences, and I would walk around gold conferences with my dad at 12 years old.
Mhm.
And I had that concept of what things were, but I didn't really know what the emotions behind it were and what the feelings were behind it. And then, you start looking at the Bitcoin side of things, and you start realizing that's why gas is more expensive here.
Mhm.
Oh, that's why I haven't seen my bananas in my store sell at that price ever again. And
Yeah.
then again, that natural progression happens. And like most people, I stumbled into it. I had read about it as a kid, scouring the internet one day because I wanted to jailbreak my phone so that I could, download something for free or change the settings on my phone so that I could, click a new button and open up something else, and and then I was like, oh, magic internet money. Oh, I can mine this. I was like, oh, but it kills my battery life on my computer. Oh no, I don't want to do this. And then,
Mhm.
4 years later, you've heard it, you've heard it, you've heard it, you've heard it, and you're like, oh, like, okay, I have a little bit of extra lying around. I think that's my first major investment. And then, again, it starts going up, and you go, okay, I should actually figure out what the hell I'm doing. Because, the first time I bought some Bitcoin, I was like, oh, when this buys me a car, I'm going to get my own car. And then by the time it bought me my own car, I was like, this is so much bigger than
Mhm.
a thing that's going to purchase something. So, I've fallen down the rabbit hole. I back to the point of reading. I was the latest reader in my family, the latest reader of anyone I know. You hand me a book about something I'm passionate about, I can sit down and read a 500-page book about Bitcoin, no problem.
Mhm.
And then, I just was like, to rekindle my childhood, I started rereading the Chronicles of Narnia books. And I'm like, one chapter at a time, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to bed. Meanwhile, I open up a book about Bitcoin, and I'm like 100 pages in, and I'm like, oh, it's 1 a.m. I should probably go to bed. Right? And just in my uh, passionate,
Can you
you'll
repeat the last part because there was a little interruption?
um part rusty.
Um, After the book, you said I should probably go to
Yeah,
bed.
yeah. So, after reading like the fiction book, I'm like, oh, I want to go to bed. And then the other books, I can kind of fall down a rabbit hole of staying awake for an hour. And it just shows you that it's like, oh, like, I like fiction, and it's fine and it's good, but that was never what I was supposed to read. So yeah, handing me a book as a kid about some story, I was like, okay, this is cool. It's a story. Like that's fun. But then yeah, you hand me a book about history or about real things. Like
Mhm.
um the I don't know if you know who Malcolm Gladwell is.
No.
But he writes like little short essays on things, and he has books that are each chapter is like a fun thing about like why do you like ketchup? You know, like there's just like a bunch of little. That's what got me into reading, right?
Uh-huh.
A bunch of essays and short stories on real things in the real world. You know,
How did you come
and
across him?
hmm?
How did you come across him, his essays?
I think my mom had his books, but of course, when you have a kid that's struggling to read and struggling to be passionate about reading, the last thing you're going to hand them is a book of essays that are breaking down real life things, right? You're like, okay, no, we need fluff and fiction and
Yeah.
fairies and magic, which is what my brother loved. My brother read everything. I mean, he just every book series, every childhood book series that you can think of, he's read every single one. And me, I was like, no, I don't want to read that. No, I don't want to read that. And then yeah, you hand me real world stories,
Mhm.
and I was like, this is so cool. Whoa, this happened. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And I'm again still to this day, I'm more passionate about real things than fiction.
Mhm. Awesome. I really love this conversation, but I think it's time to come to an end to
Yeah.
this episode. Thank you so much, Lachlan. I really enjoyed our conversation and all the experience you shared of your childhood, your family with Bitcoin. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, no, thank you. And again, I think I like being on these podcasts because my number one passion in life was being homeschooled.
Uh,
And I don't want anyone to be afraid that their kids aren't going to end up uh, being functioning members of society.
yeah.
I think that's super important that everyone knows that it works.
Yeah. And I think you busted a lot of myths here that people were concerned about.
Mhm.
So thank you again for your time. Thanks for all the listeners to come on the Fiat Proof podcast. I'm Silver from A Place to Be. Check out our website, aplacetobe.me. Sign up for the newsletter. And if there's anything, leave a comment below. Thanks for listening. Bye, everyone.